Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after what I believe is the Winnipeg Jets' best game of the season. Early in the season, although it doesn't seem that way, they're basically in a position where they've got as many points in the bank right now as had they played 18, 19 games, a good team playing that many games to get this many points. But yes, for me, this is the best game of the year, not only because you don't have to hear Renny talk about the Winnipeg Jets and the fact that they haven't been playing good quality teams so far to this point of the season. They have on this night for sure. They did a Tampa Bay Lightning team that we've seen do damage around the league so far. We saw them kind of survival instincts on display tonight. I take a look at this. I think the Winnipeg Jets were the best team on this night. And it was basically from the beginning of the night to the end. Mike Thiessen sharing my thoughts exactly. Says, best game of the season by the Jets, bad reffing and bad luck. And we're still the best team basically all game. This is what stood out to me. Now, think about this for a second before we get too far into this. Think about the idea of the Winnipeg Jets and going down 2-0 in this game. I question you. Feel free to weigh in if you'd like to. But how many teams, give me a number out of 32 teams in the league, how many teams hang it up after the first 10 minutes of this game when they get a call that, let's be honest, we'll dig into it later, bad call. And then from that bad call, a review that doesn't go their way, and all of a sudden they're down 2-0. How many teams in the NHL are broken by that? Like, go through the list of teams that you think would survive something like that. To the San Jose Sharks, probably not. Start from the bottom, work your way up, and tell me around what time, 16, 17, 18, 19 teams you've gone through before you start getting to the teams that take that in stride and find their way to work themselves back into that game. I don't think it's a long list. And yet it is something that the Winnipeg Jets, not a long list, and even the teams that could do it or want to do it would only do it a certain amount of times. The Winnipeg Jets, you take a look at the one loss they have this year, they make it interesting. Down 4-0, they come back, make it 5-4. It's interesting right down to the end. What we've seen is that the Winnipeg Jets have not quit once so far this season. And what I like about this game is just the idea that they overcome that early. I'm not surprised. I fully expected them to. They didn't break stride. They didn't break the way that they play in that game. They don't break their blueprint. But just a couple things end up going their way. The Kucherov goal off to Mesnikov's stick. It's just another one of those plays that in a game like that, I think a lot of teams, they're up. That goal gets into the back of the net, and then all of a sudden, that's when the other team all of a sudden gets rolling, and suddenly you're locked up in your own zone and you're desperately trying to survive. And instead, the Winnipeg Jets just grab the puck, head down the ice, keep doing their thing over and over and over again. I thought, and we'll get into all of these things, but the play that Nikolaj Ehlers makes to set up Logan Stanley, I thought was a game-changing kind of play. And yet the way that the game goes, where a Tampa Bay Lightning team with good survival instincts finds a way to stay in this game, a game they probably shouldn't have been in, because, again, the Winnipeg Jets were the better team from the drop of the puck to the final whistle. They find a way to survive. A lot of times teams in a situation like that will think this just isn't our night, or this other team has something on their side. And yet the Jets just keep going out and doing the right thing over and over and over again. The power play has a piece of this. The defense have a massive piece of this. The fourth line has a huge piece of this in this game. The first line has a piece of it. The second line has a piece of it. I just take a look at the Winnipeg Jets on this night, and I think everything that you would hope to see from a team in a game like that from the Winnipeg Jets, you saw. And I was thinking coming into this game. One of the things that I thought, you've heard my opinion on this. Everyone who wants to throw out the Toronto Maple Leafs game is all just a game that the Jets didn't have their fastball. I don't buy that. I think trying to throw that out is ignoring potential chinks in the armor that were exploited in that game. I just think that it can be tricky when you're the Winnipeg Jets. You get the start you do, you play the kind of teams that you're playing, okay? You go in after that loss, and the Detroit Red Wings fail to show up in that game. And then you play a plucky Columbus Blue Jackets team that has been giving teams a challenge, but like I'd said, their belief was thin, and it was broken by the Jets in that game. By the way, talked with Kenny about that. How accurate was that analysis of the thin belief of the Columbus Blue Jackets getting broken and then them walking into their next game and quickly falling down 5-0 to the Washington Capitals after that? I think we were bang on that. You want to check the receipts on that one. The point of this is when you're playing teams that are below the playoff line, that aren't the most challenging teams, I think what can happen is you can start to think that this is the standard in the NHL, and all of a sudden an upper echelon team comes in and you're just not quite ready for it, or maybe the speed of the game is a little higher than what you have been experiencing so far. This was a night I was watching for that. I was watching to see if the Jets came in after their past 2 games, and if Tampa Bay came in and just put the Winnipeg Jets on their heels. I didn't see that at all. The Winnipeg Jets are a team, and we've said this before, they are vulnerable when they play on their heels, when a team is able to put them on their heels. The Winnipeg Jets, though, when they are on their toes, are borderline unstoppable, and they spent the entire game tonight against this Tampa Bay Lightning team on their toes. On the forecheck, there were no breaks. Line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4. The Winnipeg Jets were on it. They did not come off it for the entirety of this game. I take a look at a night like this, and I think it wasn't, you want to talk about not having their fastball, this wasn't Connor Hellebuyck's best night. I know a bunch of you are out there screaming right off the bat about that first goal. Again, we'll get into that. But I think as that game goes on, the fact that through 11 shots, I think they had 3 goals. This wasn't Connor Hellebuyck's best effort on the night. A guy who usually is able to see through the play. There's a play late in that game where a pass goes across and he just loses it entirely. The Tampa Bay Lightning player rings it off the post. Luckily for Connor Hellebuyck in that situation, because he didn't, usually the one thing that Connor Hellebuyck is really good at is whether he makes the save or not, he's challenging in the shot. And by challenging the shot, you may speed up, the shooter or get into their head or whatever it is. This is a night I actually think the Jets don't get very good goaltending, and they find a way to get past that too. So they find a way to get past some reffing issues that we're going to get into and talk about. They find a way to get past a little bit of puck luck in the Nikita Kucherov goal, and they find a way to get past, not the best performance by a goaltender when they are used to getting their best performance from their goaltender, and they walk away with a 7-4 win in this game. The way they seal it, the 2 empty net goals, I like the way that the Jets play their empty net situations. They find a way to challenge the opposition. They don't sit in a shell. They're pushing them every single point. And what that means is that they turn over the puck, it's almost surely going in the back of the net the other way, because again, they're on their toes and they're attacking. And so if they turn over the puck, they're instantaneously on the attack. There is nothing not to like about this game if I'm a Winnipeg Jets fan, or if I'm a reporter covering the team and my job is to analyze whether you should or shouldn't like this game. There's everything about this game you should be happy with. The Winnipeg Jets, who have been the hottest team in hockey and continue to do so, reached another level in the season here tonight. Everyone who's waiting for the bottom to fall out of this, rather than that, the hot air balloon just keeps rising, folks. That's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business for his take on the whole thing. Here comes Kenny, folks. Kenny, after a long day of travel for me, you have the audacity to make me tap dance for 10 minutes to start out this show here. But you look good doing it. And so I'll tap dance over here. You look like $1,000,000 and just keep going with that because, of course, you are a Vittorio Rossi man. Went down and saw Frankie and the boys. That's what you folks out there need to be doing. Head on down to Corden Avenue, walk into Vittorio, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys. They will do you up right. Ken, let's just get right into it because we the time's not a changing for the Winnipeg Jets. They just keep staying the same, but the time is a wasting. So get at it.
Yeah, I mean, lots to like, as you mentioned off the top about the Jets' performance. Couple hiccups, and I didn't actually think their start was all that terrible. They had lots of zone time, and all of a sudden the goal happens, and next thing you know, the goalie interference does not result in a overturned goal. It ends up in a power play goal for Braden Point, who didn't play many shifts in the game. After that one, he only had 6 shifts total in the game. But the one that he had, or one of them that he had, counted well. Looked like a groin injury for him. As you mentioned, 4 lines going. Even though Alex Iafallo's goal, Sean, comes on the power play, I'm with you. I thought that the 4th line really did another nice job out there in terms of generating in their minutes that they had together. Morgan Barron, now the only Jets forward who hasn't scored, but he had a couple good looks. Looked like he might get one on the empty net variety also. Nikolaj Ehlers, another outstanding effort for him. Really nice pass to find Logan Stanley after causing a turnover in the offensive zone, finding him in the slot for a goal. You have Cole Perfetti getting a reward with an empty netter. Exceptional pass, Morrissey to Vladdy Nemesnikov to get the Jets on the board on that backdoor goal. A couple hiccups defensively, obviously. I think it was Nemesnikov was a little bit nonchalant on the Kucherov just makes an exceptionally good read. I thought that again, that's a play that in a playoff game you don't want that to happen if you're Vladislav Nemesnikov, but he didn't think he was in danger. But in fact, Kucherov pokes his stick and it's behind Hellebuyck, who was kind of not really set after being behind the net. Overall, the Lightning play hard and they stayed in the game, and they deserve credit for that. But I mean, this isn't the Tampa Bay Lightning depth that Sean, you and I saw in 2022. Even when they lost the final after winning 2 in a row, they just don't have quite the same amount of depth at any of the positions. Obviously,
I mean, it doesn't help when they lose their number 1 center in the middle of the game.
No, I'm just saying, even with Braden Point, Sean, they're a 2-line hockey team that has some pieces that are trying to find their way. And, one of those pieces, Mitchell Chaffee, scores a really nice goal on Hellebuyck after a great play by Jake Gensel. Jets top line, delivers another impressive goal. Kyle Connor's the most important play of the game. You could easily argue it was setting up Dylan Samberg for the game winner, but for me, it's his back check on Brandon Hagel. I mean, to me, that's one of the most important plays of the game, and that's why we've got you covered. I'm not trying to upset the apple cart here, but to me,
not at all.
That's a vintage. I mean, we talked about plays that are obvious in that front. For me, it's a less obvious play, but the fact that Brandon Hagel has to think about, he hears Kyle Connor coming, which is why he can't deke on Hellebuyck on that play. He still makes a good shot, and Hellebuyck makes a good save, but it's Connor's hustle on a play that wasn't his fault, but he knew he was the only guy that could get there, and then he chased him down. No, it wasn't a stick lift, but his ability to put pressure on Brandon Hagel in that situation when it was still a 1-goal game, to me, that's my Johnson Group. We've got you covered. Play of the game. It's right out of the playbook for us.
I've said this before. If you take away options and give a player just one option, and Connor Hellebuyck knows it, you're not going to beat Connor Hellebuyck. And so that's the importance of that play there. And I would just say, think of around the league of players that are as hot as Kyle Connor right now when it comes to producing points. There aren't many of them. Maybe there's not. Maybe he's the hottest player in the league right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he is. I kind of think that he is. And Now ask yourself the question, how many of those players who would be in the running for that? So you can agree with me or you cannot agree with me that he's the hottest player in the league right now, but how many of those players are making plays like that on the back end as well? I mean, right now you're looking at Kyle Connor, whose game is maybe the most dangerous we've ever seen it before offensively, but maybe the most complete it has ever been in his career when it comes to both offensively, defensively, compete, and so on and so forth. You've nailed it, Ken. This is the Johnson Who Got You Covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Let's just go and get through line one.
Sure.
Before, like, since you brought it up, let's get into, or do you want to go to the Kucherov hit on? Yeah, let's.
Yeah,
do
I mean,
this.
we just
Let's
talked
use
about.
this as the open to get into reffing, because people want to talk about reffing in this game. You know, I hate talking about reffing, but I'll
Yeah.
allow it on a night like tonight because it was too big of a story in the game for that. So, do you expect more discipline for Kucherov coming out of this?
Expect. I don't know that I would say expect. I didn't love the hit. Personally, I thought I need to see another clear look. I mean, it seemed like a headshot from the back with a player who was engaged with someone on the defensive side of or in the offensive zone with the Tampa Bay Lightning D-man, but I haven't seen it. Sean, you maybe have a better look than I. I didn't see a definitive elbow to the back of the head. If there was one, I think you'll see at least a fine. Kucherov, I don't know that he has a long history of dirty play, even though there are probably players around the league who don't necessarily care for some of his antics. But I actually quite, he's the kind of guy, when a skilled player brings some edge, I think a lot of coaches like that, except when their players are on the receiving end. I didn't personally like the hit. I don't know there's going to be I wouldn't say with definitive nature that there will be a suspension, but, I didn't like the hit particularly. But yeah, I mean, I'm the same as you, Sean. I don't like talking about reffing. I just didn't think that the referees had a particularly strong game on either side of the ledger. Penalties were called that weren't as egregious as some of the plays that were missed earlier. Again, I mean, we'll get into the goalie interference in a minute, but I didn't love the hit. What about you?
Oh no, it's a bad hit. Did
he get him in the head? Did you see a clear
it
look or
didn't
no?
look to me. I think what happened was he hits him from behind, and Kyle Connor kind of gets whiplash. But as
you can see by the way his head goes, right?
Yes, and so the player that he's engaged with on the boards, his helmet hits that player's helmet. So that's where I think that the kind of the head knocking came in. So it's an interesting one because the way it rolls out, it's unfortunate. It's a dirty hit. I think, no doubt. I think I'd be surprised if there's supplemental discipline, but I get this wrong. I don't think it's worthy of a suspension. If anything, I think it would be a fine, but even if it was a fine, I think I'd be a little bit surprised by that. If it was a fine, I think it would say something where the league is right now. Plays like this 10, 15 years ago happened every single game out there, right? So I mean, he's in a helpless position. He can't see him coming. He's engaged with another guy. All those things make it a dirty hit. I just don't know that there was an intent to injure on that one. He doesn't come flying in. He doesn't throw everything he has into this one, folks. Like that, if Nikita Kucherov wants to injure Kyle Connor in this situation, he's probably going at him a little bit harder than this. So I dirty play. Definitely a penalty that was missed by the refs in this situation here. I just don't think there's intent to injure. I don't think that there was malice behind it. I think it's unfortunate by the heads clacking. What happens in that situation, which is the danger you take when you do that to someone who's not expecting it, who's engaged with another player. I wouldn't be upset. I wouldn't say this was way off if he had a fine. I do think a suspension's maybe too much in this situation though. But since we're talking about the refs, Ken, and why don't we do this right now before we get going? Perfect spot to put in our Pristine Roofing wake-up call because it sure seemed like the officials needed the Pristine Roofing wake-up call on this night. And you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He'll come down to your place, tell you everything you need to know about your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. Or you can call Pristine Roofing themselves at 204-237-7663. Absolutely deserving, I would say, the refs of this. Let's just get now. I will say this. I had a lot of people texting me. Let me just get this out of the way. And sorry, we won't get that out of the way. We'll get into the first goal and why it counts, why we think their officials allowed it to count. But after that play, I'm getting tons of messages from people out there. Pat Rathwell was texting me a lot. Some former Hockey Night in Canada producers were texting me. I honestly think that this was, to your point, stuff missed on both sides of this. Like, there was a play there that a lot of people thought Gabe Vilardi was tripped along the boards, and the player's stick is in between his legs. But if you watch the replay, it's a fishing expedition. Gabe Vilardi stops moving his legs like he's just been hit by a taser and falls down. I don't think there's any contact with the stick and his legs, definitely not enough to bring him down. This, to me, was a clear dive in that situation. I could have seen a scenario by which, if the refs had seen this, Gabe Vilardi would have got a penalty and the defender would not have. I also take a look at the play that Mason Appleton, sorry, I don't, why is the name, Geeky, cuts to the middle.
Connor,
it's a scoring opportunity.
That was totally a penalty.
He's got two arms around him, like a scoring opportunity in the slot where there's a fairly obvious hold that's missed. So this is not my way of saying that it's one or the other. The Jets got the worst of it in this game. No doubt about it. The first goal, the Jets got the worst of it, but this was a bad night for the officials all around.
Oh, yeah.
You saw both head coaches screaming at the officials tonight, and it was earned by both of them. The refs had an off night here by the end of it. But that said, now that we've covered some of those things, just get into what you think they could have been thinking and the explanation for allowing that first goal to stand, Ken.
Yeah, for me, I mean, this one seemed pretty obvious in real time. Then watching the video itself, yeah, I can understand the argument that Josh Morrissey pushed Connor Geeky into Hellebuck.
Right.
But I don't, and again, I understand they're citing the rule for simultaneous contact chasing a loose puck in the crease. But to me, Connor Geeky clearly pushes the right pad of Hellebuck into the net, which was the puck there at one point? Maybe. But to me, I thought he leaned a little bit long on that, and that's what caused Hellebuck to kind of shift his body into position where he wouldn't have been able to reset for the Hagel shot even before Geeky fell on him. Geeky does exactly what you're supposed to do as a big guy. You're crashing the net, you're trying to find the puck, and if you happen to fall in the vicinity of the goalie, that's what you have to do as a young player trying to earn your ice time with a team that is looking for someone on an ELC to help them out. So I don't fault Connor Geeky on the play, but to me, when you push the pad the way that and it wasn't just a poke and out. To me, it was a lean on the pad and push the leg into the net. So as soon as that happens, Sean, in the blue paint, to me that to me was the issue.
Okay.
I like to that.
Yeah. So Kenny's water bottle pulls up the rule 69.7.
Yeah, I don't call that incidental contact.
In a rebound situation, whether inside or outside the crease, incidental contact will be permitted, and any goal that is scored as a result, therefore, will be allowed. So incidental contact is the idea that, both the goaltender and the player are going for the same space. If the player's foot gets there first and then the goalie's pad can't get to where it's trying to go because that skate is there, that's incidental contact. This isn't incidental. And I'll say this, Ken, the only explanation I have for this is that the refs thought, to your point, that Josh Morrissey cross-checked Geeky from behind and that carried him forward, and that is what led to him pushing on the pad. But I'm telling you right now, Ken, I watched it over and over again, and the contact with the pad and the push on the pad by Geekie begins a fraction of a second before Josh Morrissey cross-checks Geekie from behind. So to me, he's initiated the push. He follows through on the push. You can't tell me as an official that that push would have been any less egregious with or without the cross-check from behind, the momentum of the Jets player. I'm going to say this, Ken. I am so glad a couple years ago that we went and had such I was going to say a healthy conversation. Maybe healthy isn't what it was. I think I was getting death threats afterwards. But the time that Connor Hellebuck's mask is knocked off against Dallas and they score and go on to win that game, I was the lone voice, I think, in the entire city of Winnipeg who said the refs got it right. And they did. And I will die on that hill. I will go back again and again and again. I will die on that hill. But this is why, Ken, I think that's important. You know that regardless of whether you think I'm right or wrong, that I'm willing to call a spade in that situation and go into the breach when everyone in Winnipeg is hot and everyone else in the media is saying one thing. I'll go say the other if that's what I truly believe. So this is why I think that's important, because in moments like this, I can walk out and I can say what I saw. And what I saw in this situation, there's no talking your way around this. I do not understand how the league came to this decision. There is no explanation for me on this, on why that was not goaltender interference. It was textbook to me. And I mean, I guess we'll leave it at that. I like to make sure that I'm saying what I see, whether it benefits the Jets or the other team. I try and remove that from the situation, and I try to tell truths on this show. And the truth is, I cannot see any scenario by which that goal should have counted, any excuse. Now, maybe, Ken, the excuse is that they thought Josh Morrissey cross-checked them, and they do that in real time, but with the benefit of the replay, it should have turned that over. That goal just should not have counted.
No, it seemed, again, and it wasn't even really, this wasn't even a 50-50 play to me. Like this was a pretty obvious miss. And again, things happen. These things generally even out over time. But yeah, I think it was a miss. It was a clear miss. But like you said, I'm with you. I thought that one of the bigger misses of the game was Geekie cutting to the middle. Appleton clearly took his hand, like free hand, off of his stick and impacted the shot. From the slot. I mean, that was also a massive miss. But anyways, it was just a weird start to the game. And then not only did the Jets, not take a goal off the board, the penalty kill, which, great start to the year. We talked about it. They were fourth in the NHL at one point. Now they've dipped to that kind of, into the middle. So they've given up, what's that now, 4 goals in the last 3 games allowed on the man advantage. So, I mean, that's an area they're going to have to want to tighten up a little bit for sure. As they move, they give up 2. So that's 2, 3, 5 goals in the last 3 games. That's too many. But on the flip side, the 5-on-5 play, which I wouldn't say it was an area of concern, but they've gone from, being -2 to plus a bunch after, the last 3 games here, where their 5-on-5 play has been really a big driver into their success here.
Couple things here. We appreciate this. A loves Winnipeg Jets. Love your show, they say. Enjoying watching from Toronto. Hope the Jets wagon continues until next year. Go Jets, go. I've hated it in the past when people come out and say the Winnipeg Jets are a wagon, because it's almost always followed with the wagon wheels breaking off and falling to the side. But I mean, there's no other way to describe the Winnipeg Jets at this moment. I did want to say this. I don't tell people how to fan. Charlie Dufault says Bettman made the quick call to the head ref and hence the goal counts. LOL. I never think that this looks good. As a guy who, like before I covered this, I was a fan of Canadian teams. I was a hockey fan that wanted to see the cup come back. my goodness, we've been through 12 games so far this year. The Winnipeg Jets, if anything, have benefited from good officiating so far this season. For the one game to kind of turn against them, boy, oh boy, this is really, really quick to run and cry wolf in a situation like this. Great question by Joe Pascucci here. My guy, who I stepped
Joseph,
into my first newsroom with Joe, begging Joe to give me a job in the sports department. Joe very wisely said, "You got to be kidding me," and kicked me back over to the news side of things. But Joe says, so is that the NHL Situation Room set the standard for the rest of the season? Ken, do you think so?
I don't know. I mean, it's the biggest gray area call of all the calls, right? I mean, so I don't know that we have a definitive answer based on today's result. It would be my answer. I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think that their intent was probably fine, but I don't think we're going to see a bunch of players now pushing at goalies' pads and hoping that it won't be called. I mean, it just isn't necessarily the way that things go. But
the interesting part is
it's a great question. I mean,
it is, but one, I would say, okay, the answer to this question is no, because we never know where the standard
that's
is.
what I mean. Yes.
Joe, it would be, and I'd love to sit down to have coffee with Joe and talk about this all day long. I think Joe would maybe agree with me over the last number of years that this is just always like this constantly evolving thing throughout the season. There's never a standard. There's never something that one night it looks like, okay, well then if this is goaltender interference, we're going to carry that forward, and then it changes from night to night. If anything, this year there's been talk on Hockey Night in Canada that if there's any hint of goaltender interference this year, that it's goaltender interference. Like right. So far this year, the standard has been that there was no chance that goal would have and that's what I thought when going into the review. So to me, this is just an absolute break away from the standard that had been set in the first 10 games of the season. So I mean, if there was a standard, Joe, maybe this would be going the way to set it. I just don't believe there's ever a standard set, and there's a fly by the seat of your pants.
Too much gray area. There's just too much gray area. And sorry, to Kenny's water bottles point, in the explanation from the Situation Room, they did cite that 69.7 rule about the attacking players simultaneously attempting to play a loose puck. I just don't see how that can be considered simultaneous play, especially with how long Geeky leaned on the pad. So anyways, we're going to just agree to disagree with the Situation Room on this one. And Scott O'Neill, again, coaches can never, nothing good can come for coaches when they make a public, parade of what they say. So Scott saying we all saw what we saw and we had to live with it. I mean, I don't think he agreed with it, but at the same time, he's not going to be going crazy about it either, because, it happens.
I just want to say, Joe Pascucci was in town, I think it was
a couple weeks ago.
Always great to see Joe. One of those guys that, Joe, I think you know this from me before, but you've had a massive effect on my career. I love you, buddy. I'm not the somewhat tepid sports reporter you see before you today if it's not for Joe Pascucci. So thank you to him for that. Okay, time to get into
the unofficial historian of Manitoba sports.
Oh, well, no doubt. He's got the library and he took it with him. He cleared it right out and took it with him. Good for you, Joe. Dom Zappia says, very valuable to this team if Stanley can play a physical game.
Let's get into
create room for other players. I'm going to start on this one, Ken. So I keep getting texts, and there's so many people who are upset with the Winnipeg Jets and putting Logan Stanley in. They don't think that they're putting their best foot forward. There's an argument to be made there. There's one thing I was thinking before this show that I wanted to get out there. There's this sense out there that at every single moment, coaches are grabbing guys and throwing the best team out there, and here we go. And that's not always the case. Like, that should be the case come playoff time. But like, sometimes they're putting guys in to get guys going. Sometimes they're massaging their lineup to, sometimes Gabe Vilardi isn't scoring. And then you just keep going with what you're doing because you want to give him time to wake up. And then all of a sudden he's got, 7 points in his last 6 games or something like that, Ken. Sometimes Cole Perfetti's not going, and there's people out there who will say, well, this line combination suggests that they should be changing and moving to this, and coaches stick with that for a little while because they expect that player's going to get going. Logan Stanley, what you saw from him tonight, everyone keeps asking me why. This is what the Winnipeg Jets coaching staff believes that Logan Stanley can be at his best. A guy who impacts the game physically, a guy who, can get up ice and maybe get some shots on net, a guy who can handle himself if he needs to chuck knuckles, but a guy who can really, in the middle of a game that is already kind of manic and full of electricity, he can hit the switch on the voltage surge, right? And that's what happens here tonight. The Winnipeg Jets come out of it. They get a goal. This is what the Winnipeg Jets want Logan Stanley to be. And now here's the deal. They want him to be this more consistently. And so I know there's a lot of people out there who are like, okay, well, he's been this guy once in however many games. The Winnipeg Jets are hoping that they can get Logan Stanley to be this more often. And if he is, that there you see this effect more and more often, right? So all of these people who are asking me these questions, what you saw tonight is what the Winnipeg Jets see as Logan Stanley's kind of ceiling, is the kind of player they think he can be, and they think they can get him to be that more consistently. I'm with you. It's looked pretty choppy along the way. It's looked a little bit rough. And here's to the point that I made at the beginning. The Winnipeg Jets, for a lot of games, would have been icing a better roster if they would have put Fleury in instead of Logan Stanley. Yet they won all those games, and now they get Logan Stanley at least for one night to play the way they believe he can play. They prove the theory that when he does play like that, he can be a game breaker, which he was on this night tonight. Now going forward, the question is, how often do we see this version of Stan?
Yeah, for sure. And Sean, and so tonight with the 5-minute major, Logan had 16 shifts for 11:42. That's not a lot of ice time, but he also had 5+ minutes in the box. And, he'd been averaging kind of 15 or 16 minutes. So he needs to play with that physical edge. And again, it doesn't mean he has to fight every game or every 3 games or whatever else. But if you can deliver the type of hit that Stanley delivered on Luke Glendening in the neutral zone, that is a game-changing kind of play. It's the kind of game kind of play that sends a charge throughout the building, throughout the bench, all of those things. When Logan Stanley scores, you saw how he reacted, and you saw how the Jets bench reacted. They're happy for him. He's a popular guy. But for Logan to be an NHL regular, which is what he is trying to be, he needs to be this player, 6 or 7 times out of 10. I'm not out here, the Jets would love it to be 8 out of 10. But given where he's at in his career, how much time he's missed, this is not a young prospect anymore. This is a guy who needs to show now that that's the kind of player he can be on a consistent basis. Not 3 out of 10, not 4 out of 10, not 5 out of 10. It's got to be more in the 6.5 to 7 range, and then pushing towards 8 out of 10. Because when he is that, he can be an effective player. His ability to clear on the penalty kill, that's something they need him to be good at. His ability to throw a big check, win physical one-on-one confrontations and battles, that's what he needs to be good at. Sean, Scott O'Neill referenced it again. He used the word bully. When Logan Stanley can be a bully in a game, he can have an impact, a positive impact, because he has mobility. The reason why the Jets want it to work, it's not just because Logan Stanley is someone they've invested on for so many years, Sean. They have a lot of sweat equity invested in the player, everything from trading up to get him at 18th overall in 2016 to all the time with the Moose, with the Jets, everything else. What are the Jets trying to be more of on defense? Bigger and stronger. Yes, I know people make fun of the size, 6'7", everything else, but he has that element that the Jets are lacking on a lot of areas on the back end. They play incredibly hard for an undersized grouping, but Logan Stanley is bigger than most of those players. That's a fact. Does that mean he can be big all the time and play big? That's what is up to him to do moving forward. Adding some offense is an obvious bonus. He's got to be an efficient puck mover. He has to play an assertive game. When he does that, that's what he can do for the Jets. Now, like you said, it's about consistency and it's about doing it on a more regular basis. And that's the challenge. And Logan knows that's the challenge. He pointed it out right on the first day that he spoke after the injury.
This is well said by Tosk Live. Says problem with a guy like Stanley is they don't always play up to their size. A guy that size needs to play physical, but he, in my opinion, wants to be a skill guy, and it's just not there. I couldn't have summed this up better myself. Neither could have Ken. This is exactly the issue. This is what we're talking about here. The Winnipeg Jets see something, and every once in a while, there's these flashes. We are not saying that Logan Stanley has been this every single night. We are saying that this is exactly what the Winnipeg Jets see is as Logan Stanley's value. But Tosk Live is 100% right here. He hasn't got to this kind of game nearly enough. Is he capable of doing it? For sure, because we've seen him do it from time to time, but we've only seen him do it from time to time. So this is one of these situations where all the people, there's going to be people, we're talking about this and we're explaining it, and people are going to be like, guys, are you kidding me? Logan Stanley, he's this and he's that, and he's all these kind of problems. All those things that you're saying, you're right. You're 100% right to say that. That has been the issue. I'm not saying Logan Stanley needs to be in there and this is what the Winnipeg Jets need to do. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is tonight is the vision that the Winnipeg Jets as an organization and this coaching staff have of Logan Stanley, that dream version of him that they think they can use, and they can use it, and he can impact games like this, and he can do it more often. He can do it over and over again to the degree that he becomes a guy who affects the outcome of games with this style of game. Tosk Live is 100% right. He hasn't done it enough. I think he would know that. The coaches know that more than anything. But the fact that they keep winning gives them the ability to be patient. And the reason they're patient is because they think what they saw tonight is something that they could possibly see more often. Speaking, though, of takes that are not right, B. Henderson says if Logan Stanley can hit the net more consistently, he can easily get 20 goals this year. I will eat this gorgeous San Antonio Spurs hat right off my head if that happens, B. Henderson. That, to me, is a take worthy of inviting you over to hop into my Arctic Spas hot tub, because I'll tell you this right now, there's no such thing as a cold take in an Arctic Spas hot tub, and that is an ice cold take that needs a little bit of melting. So if you want to come over to Renny's house, let's hook up. I got the Spa Boy package. We just set it and forget it. We can take care of that cold take, or you can head on down to Arctic Spas, ask for our boy Dustin down there. Tell him Kenny and Renny sent you. That's the best way to get rid of some of these cold takes that just are always plaguing our chat room, Ken, over and over again. Nick Ehlers. Let's get into some Nick Ehlers discussion.
Yeah, I mean, although he didn't necessarily like the King of Denmark assessment post game, just an exceptional achievement for Nikolaj Ehlers, Sean. People think what they want to think, but this is a monumental moment for a player who is so incredibly proud of where he comes from. He is incredibly proud to have played with Frans Nielsen on the national team. He loves Lars Eller. The fact that there were people that paved the way for him, and now he's the one who is going to be paving the way for many generations of Danish players to come. It's something that he talked about how proud he was, but it was more in the way, it was in the delivery. Sean, you and I have covered Nikolaj for his entire career. This is a guy who's incredibly proud, to wear the flag. He helped his team get to the Olympics. Super excited about that. He's a guy who is having an exceptional start to the year. The numbers themselves are impressive in itself. 8 goals, 17 points. Only Kyle Connor has produced more offense this year for the Jets. It's been very impressive, and he deserves his flowers because he's done an exceptional job to move to the list. And as solid as a career as Frans Nielsen had, Nikolaj Ehlers is going to blow that record away for however many hundreds of points that are to follow. It's not going to be close by the time this conversation is over. And again, I'm not here saying that they can't produce another player like Nikolaj Ehlers, but it's going to be the number is going to be so high that that player is going to be, tough to catch. And if someone can catch Ehlers, that player is going to have an incredible career.
Well, I'll tell you this. Let's get into the Cambrian payoff loan. That really paid off, Reed, because I'm going to tell you this. What's paid off for the Winnipeg Jets is the care and attention that Scott Arniel has put into this player since he was named the head coach. It's one of the first things that he did was make it clear that Nick Ehlers was going to get a bigger role underneath him. That's exactly what's happened. And hey, if you are looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Ken, just game breaker. It's as simple as that. Nick Ehlers is a game breaker. His speed is game breaking. His passing is game breaking. We saw last game, his shot is game breaking. There are so many ways that Nikolaj Ehlers at the most important times of a game, the most electrifying times of a game, can just break things wide open. And this play tonight for me, I'm going here. We're going to take it. And don't run the promos yet, but this is my TCB lamplighter of the game. The off the draw possession to the Tampa Bay Lightning team, and he is so fast in on that forecheck, scoops it away, that instantaneously you've got a whole network of Tampa Bay Lightning players who are in the wrong spot because they are in a position to break out, and now they're in no man's land because Nikolaj Ehlers comes out of nowhere and no one expects him to have the puck. Never mind have it clean, never mind have it with speed, never mind swooping in a direction that is just constantly changing the passing lanes. I mean, I talk about him being a great passer. One of the reasons he's a great passer is because he's so fast. The passing lanes are constantly changing as he goes through. He finds Logan Stanley, puts this into the back of the net. This is just one of those moments that this is what makes the Winnipeg Jets great, is they've got so many game breakers who can come out of nowhere. I wanted to talk about the first line earlier on, but just they go out and, I think they had some early shifts where they got socked into their zone a little bit, but here they are. Ryan McDonough, one of the most serviceable, steady defensemen in the league, bobbles a puck. Why? Well, it's a little bit of a bad play on his part, but it's also the fact that he's got two Winnipeg Jets forechecking on him and doing a great job of shutting down the passing lanes. And then it makes him think twice, and all of a sudden the puck's off his stick and boom, it's in the back of the net. Like just these plays where everything is okay and then suddenly it's not okay for the opposition. And that's Nick Ehlers tonight in a play where he just goes in and absolutely bends the will of the game to the Winnipeg Jets, to himself. That to me was the TCB lamplighter of the game. And it's just an example. I'm thinking Nick Ehlers right now is emerging as one of the biggest game breakers in the NHL. He's always had the capability to do it. I don't think he's always had the opportunity to do it. He's been given the opportunity, and he's proven he should have been given more opportunity under the Rick Bowness regime. Under the Paul Maurice regime, we should have seen more out of this player for all of these years. And what we're seeing from him is you have to put him in the upper echelons of the league of a guy who is able to take and turn a game on a dime. That's what he did here tonight, I thought, with that TCB lamplighter, my TCB lamplighter. Ken, what do you got?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, prettiest goal of the game was the 2-on-1 with Scheifele and Velarde. But yeah, the most impactful goal and the way he did it. And like you said, the ability to create the turnover, find the player in the slot, calling for the puck, banging it, and all of those things. And even for Logan, I mean, Logan has been criticized, and rightfully so, in a lot of areas. But then when a guy comes out and delivers, you also better be willing to say when a guy has an impressive game where he scores an important goal. That's a great read by Stanley. He sees Ehlers. He knows how difficult it is, to defend him when he's coming out of that much speed. He goes to the right area, makes a really good shot. on Johansson and scores his first of the year. I mean, to me, I couldn't agree more. I think that's the lamplighter as well. That also tied him with Nielsen. So there's some, historical significance to that goal also. So, yeah, I mean, for me, certainly not going to disagree. There were some really good candidates, but no better candidate for that one in my books.
Yeah, no doubt. That's Ken's TCB lamplighter of the game. That's mine as well. Doesn't matter what we think, though. Matters what you think. Share with us your TCB lamplighter of the game. You're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale brought to you by our friends at Transcanada Brewing Company. If you cannot wait for the very generous Kenny and Renny to gift you your own 8-pack of TCB Lamplighter, well, you can head on down to Transcanada Brewing Company's tap room at 11290 Kenniston. You can pick some up there. You can pick up some blueberry. You can pick up some, at certain times of the year, you can pick up cold IPAs there, which are, I just absolutely love those. As soon as they get them back in stock, I'm like waiting at the front door, banging on the glass. Also doing that for the pizza and the food there because it's out of sight. One of the best atmospheres in the city of Winnipeg. Head on down there, folks. And that brings us to our TCB winner, which is Manny Fran 8204. Manny Fran 8204. You know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name, send me your email address, and I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale brought to you by our friends at Transcanada Brewing Company. It is the nectar of the gods, folks. I mean, we might as well go to the keg save of the game at this moment here, Ken. Let's do that, and then we can kind of freestyle it towards the end of the show here. Maybe someone will have a good question in here, but what's your save of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's honestly, it was another unconventional one by Hellebuck on a game where, as you mentioned, I don't think he was at his peak Hellebuck today, but the save on Perbix early at 3:31 into the game is mine. As you mentioned, he kind of caught a bit of a break on the Hagel chance that went off the outside of the post. I mean, Hellebuck would argue that, that's all he had. But I mean, for me, I think it was that early kind of.
No, it's not all he had. The replay shows
what he had was about 3/4 of the net. It looked
sure. Like. Well, and Hellebuck doesn't know where it is. Hellebuck loses the puck on that one. Like he doesn't know where it is. At the very last minute, he starts moving, but there's no argument that Connor Hellebuck affected that shot at all. If anything, Josh Morrissey does. Maybe that's a candidate for got you covered because Josh Morrissey lies down and kind of gets his foot into the shooting lane. So maybe Josh Morrissey saves that. I still think it's just a player kind of missing. But anyways, go on.
No, Larry, you can still use your voucher.
You bet.
Still use it when
Larry.
You can.
Yeah, get at it.
No, you have a different save.
You wrapped it up?
Well, I mean, I think the save was the one on Perbix, like 3:31 in. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, there weren't a ton of game-breaking saves in the game by either guy. Did you have a different one?
You know what? I'm going to give it on one of these ones where, to your point, I don't think there was a lot tonight. I don't think this is one of those nights where you look, and I know people like to bend over backwards and say, well, he let in 4, but, like I'm sorry. I hear that time and time again. I don't think this is one of those nights, but I will say this, the shorthanded breakaway on Kyle Connor where he...
Oh, Hagel, yep.
I'll throw in this as the keg save of the game as well, because I will say this. One thing that I think Connor Hellebuck is really good at is if he sees that one of his defenders is taking away options, I think personally he's the best at. There's a lot of things that he's the best in the league at, but I think he's the best in the league that if he knows that there's only one option that you have, he's the best in the league at taking away that one option. I used to say this about Ed Belfour. Ed Belfour was the kind of goaltender that usually if he played behind really good defenses, so if you think about when he was with Dallas Craig Ludwig,
even Chicago.
Craig Ludwig had those stupid thick pads and he could shut down shooting lanes, and they had great defenders on those teams. And what they were really good at was if a shot came in on Ed Belfour, he'd almost invariably save the first one, and the defense would swallow it up and clean it up. So Ed Belfour, I think what made him a really great goaltender was I think he's one of the best all time at being like, if it's just you and me, and I know I don't need to worry about the pass across, or I don't need to worry about the rebound that comes off this, you are not going to beat me. Connor Hellebuck has that, but he also has all these other elements that I don't think Ed Belfour had. So to have that, to me, that is a really big compliment to say you have that piece of Ed Belfour that I think made Ed Belfour, a phenomenal goaltender,
Hall
a
of
Stanley
Famer.
Cup winning goaltender, a Hall of Famer. In situations like that, that's what I see. I see Connor Hellebuck reverts to being the kind of goaltender that Ed Belfour was, that he's like, I know you've got this option and this option, not 7 different options. And when I know that your options are limited, I can take them away. So for me, that's just a good way for me to kind of bring out an element of Connor Hellebuck I don't think he gets a lot of credit for. He should get credit for that because I think he's the best in the league at it. That's my keg save of the game, and that's Ken's keg save of the game, but doesn't matter. We want to hear from you. What's your hashtag the keg save of the game? Share with us your save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last show, that would be April Whiteout. Always wishful thinking April Whiteout, who's been wishing for the April Whiteout, which he got to a degree for the last couple of years. Hasn't lasted as long as I'm sure. Definitely hasn't been a May Whiteout. But anyways, April Whiteout, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email, and I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And Ken, give Sweet Lou a shout out before we wrap this up.
You bet. For our folks in the chat room when listening on the podcast who have realty needs they'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community.
Okay.
And, sorry, one quick one before we wrap. I mean, we talked about the Manitoba Bisons finishing first in Canada West. Tough loss to them, to the Regina Rams yesterday on Saturday, which will mark with the final day of Brian Dobie's coaching career, his illustrious coaching career at the University of Manitoba Bisons. As someone who covered the Bisons early on in my journalistic career, I know you gave a great shout out to Joe Pascucci. Brian Dobie, just an absolute class act, and wishing him all the best in retirement. Someone I enjoyed interviewing a lot. Had a chance to call a couple of games for play-by-play, filling in for DT back in the day on UMFM, and also had some Shaw broadcasts where I was able to do some fun Bisons games as well. And Brian, always a great person. They got a lot of great people around the university in that football program, but nobody gave more to the program than Brian Dobie, and just wishing him all the best here.
I'll tell you this, Brian Dobie, not only a guy who was just an absolute joy and pleasure to cover and told such great stories. I remember the story of David Onyemata coming from Lagos, Nigeria, and coming over not knowing what a football was, and then bringing him in and him telling the story of this raw talent coming in, and over 5 years, them turning him into an NFL player. And the exact same story as a guy back in 1990. Israel Adonijah, Lagos, Nigeria. He was from Brandon, came in, hadn't played a lot of football, and basically turned from nothing into an NFL football player in 5 years. Always a joy to talk with him, always really colorful, always really revealing. And I got to say this, he was a professor of mine when I took my first degree at the University of Manitoba, and was a great prof at that time, and really interesting and just fascinating. Told us this great story when Izzy Adonijah was being scouted, about how all these NFL scouts came up and they were like, well, what's his measurement on this? What's his measurement on this? What's his measurement on this? And he was saying to them, we don't have a measurement for that. What is that measurement? That's how advanced at the time, the scouting and the testing was down in the NFL compared to the CFL. I'm sure the Canadian collegiate system has caught up quite a bit, but great career. Proud. You should be proud as Manitobans to have had someone who presented himself the way that he did and represented you the way he did. Quickly before we go, Ken, I just want to talk about the Power Play 1 and Power Play 2. Power Play continues to sing here. I've talked about the difference between the 2 power plays and why it's so challenging, because they're 2 different styles. Now, we know what the power play one style looks like, right? Like it's you're getting a lot more motion now, but you're basically moving the puck around the horn and trying to find that open guy. The difference with the second power play is they kind of play it along the boards. They rugby scrum it a little bit, and they do a lot, Ken, of rolling it around the boards so that the opposition team starts watching the puck move from low to high up the boards, and then they throw it back down behind the net where usually Nino Niederreiter is waiting. So you're getting the opposition to turn and look and do this. And then you're getting them to turn and look and do that. And then all of a sudden, Nino Niederreiter is skating again, coming into the puck against the grain. So everyone starts looking to the left side of the ice, but he picks up with speed and catches everyone looking the wrong way, including the goaltender. And then he throws it out front and boom, it's in the back of the net. This is a very different style of power play from the first power play, but very difficult to defend. Think about the Cole Perfetti game winner against Calgary. It's the same deal. Nino Niederreiter coming from behind the net and then throwing it out front. When you get defenders' eyes snapping like they're watching a tennis match, the puck's over here, the puck's over here, the puck's over here, that's when you confuse them. That's when guys get lost. That's when guys open. That's why that power play 2 is so good and so significant. Power play 1 is just really good at opening up shooting lanes, finding the right guy, basically going for the weak spot. This power play 2 is really good at deception. They are two entirely different philosophies. And I've said this time and time again, it is so hard if you are defending a power play to go out and defend one philosophy of power play, and then all of a sudden a unit comes out and it's a totally different philosophy. It's really hard to switch on the fly. And it's the reason why you're finding in most games, Ken, when the power play 1 is not clicking, power play 2 is getting it done. It is just remarkable to watch so far what this power play has done for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, just another quick one. I thought there were actually the Jets' number 1 power play actually did a really good job of moving the puck around on several occasions this evening, even though they weren't rewarded for it. And then great job by the second unit to Cash, like you said. Good movement from Perfetti to Niederreiter, and Iafallo just finding a quiet area in front and, squeezing his shot through the pads of Johansson. But yeah, I mean, the second unit has been just absolutely awesome this year. I mean, they're pushing the top unit. That's their job. In the limited minutes they get, try to score as much as they can. I mean, that is literally what their job is to do. And when both units are scoring, like you mentioned, when they attack it a little bit differently, I think deep down, I think the concepts from Davis Payne are similar in that he wants some shooting, but how they get to those quality shots definitely looks different for sure between the first unit and the second. But having 2 units moving well the way that they are, it's been an impressive thing to show.
Okay, that's is this a bribe? Is Julie Sue bribing me? How much blueberry ale to win a keg gift certificate? I'm going to be in the Peg next week. I don't know. Maybe she's asking for tradesies with some of you folks out there if you've got some TCBs. Either way, want to say what I always say before we wrap up this show. If you appreciate the conversations happening in these spaces, we would really appreciate it if you would appreciate and support our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in these spaces. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, Arctic Spas, the Johnston Group, Transcanada Brewing Company, and of course the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. This is another absolutely great night here. And boy, oh boy, like we've never seen anything like this since we've been doing this show, Ken. We've seen like a lot of, honestly, we've been lucky since we started this show to see the Jets play a lot of really good hockey, a lot of successful hockey, sometimes a lot of success and results, even when they were a team that probably didn't play the right way and maybe wasn't deserving of those results. I think Jets fans have been lucky over the years, although I think they would trade a lot of that to get some playoff success. Who knows where that's going this year, but we're in the middle of something that's really interesting here. And given all those sucky boo-boos who can't handle losses, it helps Kenny and Renny that the Jets just refuse to lose. So the sucky boo-boos have to just keep checking in. It's great to see all you sucky boo-boos and all you hardcores. Great job on this night tonight, Ken. We will chat with everybody.
Welcome home, buddy.
After the next game on Tuesday. Talk to you later.